Greetings everyone, this is Fresh and Sassy Plant-Based Living, and today I have a wonderful and fun menu planned for you. These are many of my favorite plant-based foods. Today we have a rapini with garlic and ginger sauce, yams medallioned and diced and oven roasted, stuffed pasta shells baked with cheese, fried green tomato nuggets, braised red cabbage, and oven roasted plantains. Now, I'm going to start out first with my rapini. I'm going to add some grapeseed oil, a little bit of sesame seed oil, and the last little bit of my coconut aminos that I have here in this bottle. I like to make sure that my vegetables and all of my foods are well seasoned, especially my broccoli. This is my own homemade herb and spice seasoning. I have a number of videos you can locate on my channel if you're interested in the recipe, and I'm just going to combine all of this together. I have washed my rapini, and I am taking the rapini heads and dousing them in the seasoning and then giving it a nice generous toss in the sauce, just to make sure that everything is nicely coated and that we have a wonderful and robust flavor to the rapini. I don't like bland vegetables. They've got to be well seasoned. So here I am taking the rapini, placing them into a pan and covering it with foil. I like to let these sit and marinate for a while. You can eat these raw this way. You don't have to cook them. But I like to roast mine in the oven. So I'm going to let these hang out in the refrigerator for about 20 minutes while I'm getting some of the other food done. Here I am adding more grapeseed oil, coriander powder, nutmeg, and some cardamom to the grapeseed oil, and I'm going to give this a nice toss and a mix. And after that, I will add in my yam medallions and give them a toss in the oil and the seasoning. Because they're being oven roasted, I don't have to add any sugar. All the natural sugars are going to be naturally locked in, and they will be sufficiently sweet. I was going to add these to the stuffed pasta shells, but I didn't do so, but I just decided to toss them in the remaining grapeseed oil with the seasonings, the spices that I added. I gave it a toss, and these will go into a pan, and they will cook in the oven at 400 degrees for about 45 to 50 minutes. Next, I'm going to start to prepare my green tomato nuggets. I'm going to prepare a slurry made with flour, my own herb and spice seasoning, about a teaspoon or more of some cornstarch to give it a nice crispness. Of course, when you eat tomatoes, you have got to have basil, so I'm adding extra basil, and I'm going to be adding a little pepper and more herb de Provence. I'll give it a good stirring, and after that I will add some water to it to make my slurry. I'm going to make sure that this is combined really well, getting rid of any lumps. I don't want a thick batter, but rather I just want something that will just barely coat the tomatoes, because once you put this on the tomatoes, it will help the next step work even better. And the next step will be preparing a flour, panko, and herb and spice mix, and that will be the coating on top next. And this is the consistency that you want. Now I'm going to prepare the dry coating mix, and I'm going to do so by adding about 4 tablespoons of flour. You can use self-rising flour, or you can use the regular flour. If you use the self-rising flour, cut back on your salt, because the self-rising flour does contain sodium. Here you see me adding in my herb and spice mix, and on top of that I'm adding in the tandoori. Now, the tandoori has a lot of what's already in my homemade herb and spice mix, but it's just a little bit more of an enhancement. I added in some more basil and pepper. I'm giving this a good stir and a mix, and now I'm going to add in the panko for a great crunch. So I'm going to take my slurry, mix it for one final time, and then just pour it right on top of my green chopped tomatoes. I'm going to give the tomatoes a nice little toss. As you can see, it's not heavily coating the tomatoes, but it's just making them wet enough and seasoning them enough so that I can move on to the next step and have a nicely coated green tomato and a crunchy one. So I'm going to give these a toss in the flour, the panko, and the herb and spice mix, and we will next commence to frying them. I'm just going to let these hang out for a little while by themselves to absorb all the flavors. I'm going to give a shake and a toss, and then let them sit and rest for a while. And this is what they look like. Next up, I am going to just scoop out some of the tomatoes, just that small little white part or the little green part there. I just take a measuring spoon and scoop this out. And this is what my pasta shells are going to be stuffed with. And then I'm just going to cut up my tomatoes into nice thick chunks. Next, I'm moving on to my sweet bell peppers, and I'm going to do the same thing. Just cut them up into nice small bite-sized chunks that'll be easily managed and easily stuffed into the pasta shells. And then I'm going to do the same thing with my onions. I just cut them in half, and then I give them a horizontal slash down the center, and then I just chop them up this way. Next, I'm going to prepare my pasta shells. I've got ground pepper, basil, herb de Provence, sea salt, minced onions, and powdered garlic. All of that is right here in this pot. I'm going to bring the water to a nice rolling boil, and then I will proceed to add in my pasta shells. Okay, so now my water has come to a nice rolling boil, and I am going to add in my jumbo pasta shells. I always season my water. I used to do just salt and maybe a little pepper, but I really like my pasta shells to have a nice flavor and taste, because sometimes you might just want to eat the pasta shells by themselves. Also, to add to my stuffing, I am going to be adding some cremini mushrooms, and I'm just going to chop the creminis into small little chunks and add that to the mix. Next, I'm going to prepare my plantains by washing them off and cutting off both ends, slicing it down the middle just slightly, and removing the peel. I like to cut my plantains at a slant like this, and I'm getting them ready to go in the oven at 400 degrees. I'll put them in a pan and cover them, drizzle a little oil, and just let them roast up nicely by themselves. Here are the plantains. They're all sliced up nicely and ready to go. And then I'm going to cut up some more plantains by cutting them in half and then cutting them into small pieces. The smaller pieces will go into my tomato, pepper, and onion mixture. And let me tell you, this will make for a very sweet and savory pasta stuffing. This is so delicious. So now that I have prepped all of my foods, I am now ready to begin cooking and preparing the rest of the meal. The first thing I'll do is take some of my grapeseed oil and add that to a nice heated pan. I'll add in my own herb and spice mix, and if you see those little green chunks there of greenery, that's my dried homegrown lemon verbena. Oh, it made this recipe so delicious. So I'm going to toast up my herbs and spices just a little bit before I add the vegetables and fruit to the pan. And again, I'm going to add some of the coconut aminos and let this roast up in the pan just a bit. Next, I'm going to add in all of the tomatoes, peppers, and onions and mushrooms to the pan. Now, I don't like to mess with my food. I just put the food in the pan and I try to spread it out evenly and I cover it. I don't play with my food. I just let it do its thing, and it will do its own thing if you let it. So here, I'm just spreading it out evenly over the pan, giving it a nice toss, and then I cover it with a lid, and that's it. It does its own thing with all the herbs and spices going on in there and all the beautiful fruits and vegetables in that pan. It'll do its thing. Leave it be. I promise you, it will be so delicious. And even when we add the plantains in here, it's going to be even better. Now, if you'll notice, there's a lot of juice in the pan. I want this to reduce. In other words, I want the water to dissipate so that you don't see this anymore. Once the water has dissipated, then you're ready to rock and roll and start stuffing your pasta shells. So here comes the good part. When you add in the plantains, oh my goodness, and I use very, very ripe plantains. I wait until my plantains turn completely black, and that's when I'll cook them or bake them or add them to recipes like this. These really dark plantains are so good in soups and stews. They just add another layer of flavor and sweetness to the recipe. Okay, so all the liquids and juices have now been reduced, and I'm ready to start stuffing my pasta shells. If you could just smell how fragrant this mix of fruits and vegetables are, oh my goodness, it's so wonderful. So here I'm taking my cooked pasta shells, and you can see the pasta shells have bits and pieces of herbs and not spices, but herbs on the pasta, and I'm just stuffing the pastas with all the fruits and vegetables that you see cooked here. Now, if you want to, you don't even have to cook this mixture. You can insert the raw fruits and vegetables into the pasta shell. And then I top the shells with a little bit of dye, bake them in the oven at 400 degrees for about 7 to 8 minutes, and this is what I got. Doesn't it look good? There are my fried green tomato nuggets, and there are my roasted sweet potato medallions and diced sweet potatoes. Here's my bowl complete with the rapini, the green tomatoes, the plantains, the diced sweet potatoes, the stuffed pasta shells, and the braised red cabbage. Oh, it was so delicious. Look at it. Doesn't it look great? The crunch, all the different flavors and textures, everything was nicely flavored. The plantains were tender and soft. The green tomatoes were crispy on the outside and tangy and semi-sweet on the inside. Oh, it was just such a pleasure to have this bowl. And this is a great bowl to have if you're the type of person who only eats one meal a day and you need to get in as much nutrition as possible. And this bowl is filled with nutrition, from the rapini to the sweet potatoes, the plantains, the cabbage, the green tomatoes. It's just loaded with goodness. This is a nice comfort bowl. here we are the next day eating leftovers. There, the green fried tomatoes, the rapini, the stuffed pasta shells, the diced sweet potatoes, the medallion sweet potatoes. It was even so much better the next day. You just take all of this and put it into a pan and add a little water to the pan and cover it, and everything just toasts and roasts up really nicely. And it was so good the next day. You see the mushrooms, the peppers, the red peppers, green peppers, onions. Oh my, it was, I'm wishing I had this meal in front of me right now. This video was done about, oh my goodness, about 2 weeks ago. So, yeah, I'm wishing I had this right now. It was so delicious. The next day I remembered I had some blueberries I needed to do something with, and these blueberries were super, super huge. So I gave them a good rinse, put them in a pot of water, I'd say about maybe a quarter cup of water, and I added some lemon juice and put them on the stove and just let them reduce down. And then I took a potato masher and mashed it all up and made a really sweet and delicious topping to go on anything you want, whether you wanted to put it on toast. You could even add this mixture to some lemonade. I put some on top of my sweet potato. Oh, it was so good. Just the blueberries and lemon itself. No sugar whatsoever. It was so delicious. Look at that. Oh my gosh, it was so good. Anyway, I want to thank you for watching. I hope you'll stay tuned. I've got some other recipes and some other tips and ideas in the kitchen that I'm excited to share with you about, and a couple of other surprises I won't share just yet, but it's going to get done, and I hope you'll be able to use the information I share. Anyway, this is I Am Fresh and Sassy. Stay close, stay tuned. I'll see you soon. Yah willing. Ciao.